I want to note that the Jaguars and the Titans are in the exact same position that they were last year, except switched. So watch the Titans win every single game remaining this season and win the division.
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place, because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie.
And welcome to the C&C Talks podcast. It's episode 37 of season 2. And if back on Wednesday you didn't happen to see that we posted an interview with Titan Gonzalez of Locked On Mariners, make sure you check that out wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, and just reminders do every week. We release every Wednesday. This week we'll be releasing on Friday due to Thanksgiving. And we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It's currently Tuesday, November 21st, 2023 at about 11 p.m. a.m. Pacific time. And we had a really busy episode this week. Even though it's Thanksgiving, the news doesn't quit. We got some news on Rosalind Carter, George Santos, the government shutdown, Elon Musk, and in sports, week 11 of the NFL, college football is coming to a close, and MLB free agency is getting underway, as well as the Formula One Grand Prix in Las Vegas. All right, Colin, let's get into it.
Yeah, like you said, a busy episode. We're going to start with that very, very sad news of the death of former First Lady Rosalind Carter, married to Jimmy Carter for 77 years. She went into hospice care last week and then died at 96 years old. She had dementia. Jimmy Carter also, he's been in hospice for a few months, but just does not seem to have the will to die. Very sad news, Charlie, for just an all-time great person, great First Lady. Obviously, that both of them, Rosalind and Jimmy, just all-time people.
Yes, it is, and it really does just show the impact that people have on this country, even when they are no longer in positions of leadership. Just the messages that they show, and really the power that they still have, just to talk to people in government, in positions of power, and still affect things. That was one of the great things that both of the Carters continued to do, and now it seems that now that one of them has died, we don't know how much longer Jimmy Carter will stay around for. But yeah, this is just a very sad day. We actually have a there was a statement from Jimmy Carter. What was that statement, Colin?
Yeah, Jimmy Carter put out a statement. Rosalind was my equal partner in everything I ever accomplished. She gave me wise guidance and encouragement when I needed it. As long as Rosalind was in the world, I always knew someone loved and supported me. That was just part of the statement. And it let both of them, honestly, be just a great example of not just how past presidents should act upon leaving the White House, but really how people should interact, especially like their marriage was something that I feel like, honestly, all relationships should aspire to be. And Rosalind Carter, I think, had there was one quote that she had that really stuck out to me from her life, which was, "A leader takes people where they want to go. A great people takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be." Charlie, it's a very powerful statement, in my opinion, especially given the current context of the world.
And we also now have an update on the government shutdown, which has yet again been avoided, just barely. There was a deal worked out between Mike Johnson and the Democrats, actually, to get something passed, very similar to what McCarthy did. We'll see if the Republicans now go after him for doing similar to what they actually kicked McCarthy out for, but the government shutdown has been avoided now until January.
Correct. And yeah, there's some far-right Republicans who are very mad about this because just like the last one, it got more Democratic votes than Republican votes. Far-right Republicans don't like that. They're very mad at Johnson, but it's unclear whether they're going to actually try to kick him out. At the moment, I would say no. But Charlie, let's move on to a guy we just keep coming back to on this show because how could we not? It's George Santos. Now, we've mentioned how he was nearly expelled a couple weeks ago. Well, it looks like it's going to come back up for a vote, and he might actually be expelled this time because there was an ethics probe into him. And the findings were bad. He used campaign funds on a lot of personal stuff, including Botox and OnlyFans, Charlie.
Well, I mean, if you're going to spend money, that is a way to use it.
Yeah, it's definitely a way to use it.
I mean, could he theoretically use Botox as a way to quote unquote improve his political image.
I mean, he could argue that. I don't think that the argument would go well. I mean, these are not just ethical violations; these would
Nothing with
seem
him
to be
goes
crimes.
well.
Yeah, I mean, this caused him to be referred to the Justice Department for further investigation. He's already been indicted there on 23 counts. So George Santos, Charlie, is just in deep trouble. It looks like he could get expelled in the next week or two from Congress. I would bet money on that actually happening.
It is about time too, considering all the
Exactly.
other allegations have been injured. You said 20. He's been 23 different times.
Indictments.
This is, I mean, it's about time. Even if he doesn't get removed, he's not. He said that he won't run again, which is good because he wouldn't win
Yes.
at all.
Well, it's good for Republicans, honestly. It
It
improves
is
their
actually very
chances of
good for
winning that
Republicans.
seat.
If he were to run, that would be a disaster.
Exactly, and the House margin is very, very small for Republicans right now. I do want to move on to something else happening in Congress that is even less good than George Santos somehow, and that is what I'm going to deem the Fight Club, because there were a couple instances of literal fighting in Congress. Kevin McCarthy this week elbowed Tim Burchett, a member of Congress who voted to oust McCarthy back in October. He elbowed him in the kidneys, and then apparently said he didn't do it. A reporter witnessed it go down, so it seems to be confirmed. And then in the Senate, Mark Wayne Mullen, a Republican senator from Oklahoma, who is also a former MMA fighter, he tried to physically fight a witness at a hearing before Bernie Sanders had to shut it down. Charlie, these are not serious people. Like, forget about just whether they're capable of actually governing. They're literally trying to punch each other. Like,
Yes,
what are we doing here? Why are we sending these people to Congress?
and in fact, not only did he try to fight until Bernie Sanders shut that situation down, he also said, "I'm doing this to defend the values of the state of Oklahoma."
I mean, isn't that offensive to the people of Oklahoma that
So
their senator believes
based
that
on that,
those are their values?
I don't think I want to go to Oklahoma anymore.
No,
Not
I
that I
really
ever
don't.
not that I ever wanted to, but now I want to
They
even
stole my
less.
basketball team. I'm salty.
Yep.
Then Elon Musk, we've got to talk about him because he's been promoting some honestly neo-Nazi stuff on Twitter, and which it's causing companies to suspend their advertising on Twitter. Apple, Disney, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery, and Comcast, they have all suspended advertising on Twitter. As a result of this, Twitter is suing Media Matters, a liberal media watchdog group, who just the other day accused Musk and Twitter of promoting white supremacist and anti-Semitic content, something that is factual, but now they're suing Media Matters for their loss of advertisers. This lawsuit's probably going nowhere, but Charlie, to me, the most horrific thing is now Ken Paxton, the embattled Attorney General of the state of Texas, has, because of Musk's comments, he has opened up a investigation into Media Matters for doing this stuff. This seems to be a blatant violation of the First Amendment. It should be universally condemned. It should be disqualifying. I mean, frankly, it's an authoritarian move.
Yeah, and one of the questions that I actually had for you, what exactly did Musk say?
I mean, it was a whole bunch of stuff, but just replying with like, I agree to some posts basically calling for genocide of Jews. But and this was not just once; it was repeatedly, and then that coupled with the fact that uh, all of these companies that had ads on the platform, they were being placed directly next to posts from Biden neo Nazis, is just it caused them to want to no longer have ads on the platform because they don't want to be positioned next to that type of content.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, rightfully so. Why would you want your ads for your company placed next to anti-Semitic neo-Nazis and their posts? Which, I mean, to be fair, then based on that, why would you be on Twitter at all?
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to Israel, the continuing situation in Israel, Palestine, and Charlie. For this, I mostly want to focus on the protests that are here in the United States because it's the amount of anti-Semitic and Islamophobic stuff, both of them in various different protests, is just absolutely horrific. But for the most part, the level of anti-Semitic stuff, it's not just Elon Musk here. It's a lot of protests around the country calling for violence against Jews, genocide of Jews, and I feel like we have to. First of all, if you're doing that, you're on the wrong side no matter what. But second of all, there has to be a distinction drawn between Israelis and the Israeli government, and then the Palestinian people and Hamas, because they are different groups. And the people in both cases, the people deserve support, and the governments are both kind of horrific. And I get that that's in some ways just a false equivalency, but it's kind of the best that I've got.
Yeah, and I also think it is interesting about all these protests. We see mostly when these protests crop up, counter protests from the other side. There have been some violence going on with those protests, not necessarily in the United States, but also abroad. And we also do have an update from the actual lines of the war as well. Israel has taken over one of the major hospitals in Gaza due to suspicions that Hamas was using the building. I don't know if there's any confirmed reports that Hamas was in fact actually using that building, but there is still continued efforts by Israel to continue to sweep out Hamas and eventually see if they can get into those tunnel systems that Hamas is apparently using, so they can sweep out the fighters there.
It also looks like we may be nearing some sort of temporary ceasefire, at least in order to get hostages back.
We also have an update from the Argentinian elections. And Colin, was an interesting result. What exactly went down in Argentina?
Yeah, Javier Milei was elected their next president. Now, this is a very far right wing
Chainsaw
guy.
Man.
You might recognize him as the chainsaw guy because his symbol was a chainsaw. It symbolized how he was going to just completely slash government spending. He's frankly pretty radical in how far right he is. He's been likened as Argentina's Trump, anti abortion, a climate change denier, just an all time crazy guy. But fortunately for him, he was running against the current finance minister in Argentina. Argentina has about 140% inflation rate at the moment, so you can see why they may not exactly support their finance minister. And that's what happened. And frankly, it was a lot of young people that were going out and voting for Javier Milei. I guess just because they wanted change so much, they were willing to elect a climate change denier.
Yeah, and just some things to know about Argentina. Argentina's inflation rate before the elections was nearing 140%, as well as that country did have quite many deaths from COVID, as well as the three-way election that had passed a few months ago that resulted in a runoff, in which just happened this past week, leaving a winner that we've just discussed. Now we have some news from OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. Colin, exactly what are they doing? And just how bad is it?
It's bad. It's really bad. This company in the last week has just completely fallen apart. Their board, they fired their CEO apparently because they felt that they did not have sufficient oversight over the CEO. As a result, the president resigned. The CEO has just joined Microsoft to lead a very top secret team regarding AI. The president has also joined him there, and now the overwhelming majority of employees, Charlie, have signed on to a letter saying that if the board does not resign, then they will join Sam Altman, the CEO, at Microsoft. They will all leave OpenAI. So this is just an absolute disaster for the company. It's been a really rough week for a company that was honestly doing really, really well over the last year or so.
Yes, it is. And obviously, the market for AI and AI writing services, of course, very unstable at the moment, considering how new this technology is. Now,
Yeah,
I'm
some
not
fun
quite sure
news.
how to pronounce this, but we have a winner for the Bird of the Century in New Zealand. Colin, how exactly do you pronounce that?
It's called the Puteki Teki. And
Okay, thank
this
you.
is notable because it was a campaign actually led by British American comedian John Oliver on the show last week tonight. They launched a campaign in support of the Puteki Teki because anyone around the world can nominate a New Zealand bird, and everyone around the world can vote on it. Voting was open for 2 weeks, and with the support of John Oliver and last week tonight, it didn't just win. Charlie, it won by 275,000 votes. It got about 290,000 votes total. The next closest got about 10,000.
Huh. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a stat for us this week or not? Should we move on?
I actually do have a stat for you this week. As this is another NFL one for you. Usually my stats are sports related, as that is one of the easier ways to find stats that fit with our episodes. The Chiefs and Eagles played this week, and for the first time since a Super Bowl rematch, the year after the Super Bowl, the loser of the Super Bowl actually won that match. The previous 4 had all resulted in the winner of the Super Bowl winning. But it is looking very much likely that we could see the Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl for the second year in a row. When was the last time that we had the same 2 opponents face each other in the Super Bowl back-to-back years?
Ooh, did the Patriots and the Giants face off against each other back to back?
No, they played twice, 2007 and 2011.
Ah, so it's got to be longer ago than that then. Like,
It is.
was it the Cowboys and the Bills?
Well done. It was 92 and 93, Cowboys and Bills, and the Cowboys won both.
Yeah, the Bills. That was part of the Bills' 4 straight losses in the Super Bowl. And Charlie, they have not been back since. And as we'll get to in just a sec,
I
it
don't
doesn't
think they'll
really
be
look
back.
like it doesn't really look like they're going to be back this year either. Yeah, let's move on to sports now. Let's start with the NFL and let's kind of just go through these games, Charlie. Let's start with the Bengals and the Ravens. The Ravens getting a huge win, 34-20, and the Bengals, Charlie, they're losing Joe Burrow for the entire season.
Yes. Now, something interesting though is could Browning do something very similar to what Brock Purdy did last year?
No, I mean Jake Browning he's been a backup for several years, right? Like I doubt he's going to do much. Like generally, like maybe if you're a backup and you're still really young, then you have a chance. But Browning is not that anymore. He's been sitting on the bench for a long time. I just don't see him doing anything. Otherwise, he probably would have at least gotten some game action before now.
Fair point. Some other games this week, the Browns snuck by the Steelers. The Steelers, I believe, got outgained again.
Yes, but
For
Deshaun
the
Watson
yes,
is
without
gone.
Deshaun, the Browns won without Deshaun Watson. They started Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who had not a great game. 165 yards, an interception, no touchdowns, but it was enough for the Browns to sneak by the Steelers. Kenny Pickett did not have a great game either.
Yeah,
Some other games from this week that were notable were the Raiders looked good but fell to the Dolphins. The Lions survived a scare against the Bears. The Bears had a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter, but in typical Chicago fashion, managed to lose the lead in the span of 5 minutes and lose. Jaguars took
yeah.
care of business against the Titans. In the disappointment bowl so far this season, the Chargers lost to the Packers by 3. Cardinals in one of the most if you looked at the beginning of the season and you told me that Cardinals Texans would be a pretty good game, I wouldn't have believed you. This was a pretty decent game. Cardinals, of course, are a better team than the record shows by a lot. And I'm going to be real. I think CJ Stroud didn't have a great game. 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 336 yards. This man needs to win MVP.
Yeah, no, like this is again one of his worst games. He still had a pretty good game, and Charlie, that Houston Jacksonville game next week, that's going to be just a
It's going
huge
to be
game.
great, and it's huge. If the Texans win, I believe that they do take control of the AFC South. They do. They would
Correct.
with a win.
I mean, this team, honestly, can I be completely honest? It kind of reminds me of last year's Jacksonville team.
Yes, and no. Last year's Jacksonville team started the year 3-7.
That's true. That's fair.
And then went on to
Do have a
also,
couple
by
other
the way, I
points.
want to note that the Jaguars and the Titans are in the exact same position that they were last year, except switched. So watch the Titans win every single game remaining this season and win the division.
I find that very unlikely. I do have a couple notes on some of these games. First of all, Charlie, how sure are we that the Detroit Lions aren't going to the Super Bowl this year?
I mean, I could see it. The one thing that does concern me with them is the fact that in the games that they've really, really needed to win, they just
They've
have
lost.
not been able to do it. I mean, let's look
That's
at
true.
their schedule so far. They beat the
Yeah, they
Chiefs.
lost to Seattle.
They beat the Chiefs only because the Chiefs wide receivers refused to catch a pass. Lost to the
Sound
Seahawks in
familiar?
overtime. Admittedly, in that game, whoever got the ball first in overtime would win the game.
Yep.
They got
They
absolutely
won. Yeah.
their other loss. They got smashed by Baltimore.
Yeah. So
To
they
be fair,
have some work to do.
Baltimore also annihilated Seattle a few weeks later. So Baltimore, is Baltimore the 1 seed in the AFC right now?
With the Chiefs' loss, they might
Yes,
be.
they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Charlie, the Los Angeles Chargers, they feel like they're just too talented of a team to be this bad. Is it simply just a coaching problem? I mean, we know that they should have fired Staley a long time ago.
Yes, I want to state, by the way, real quick.
Yeah.
This team is in 14th place in the AFC. The only teams that they're better than are the Titans and the absolute fire that is the New England Patriots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a disaster. It's a complete
Speaking of which, the Patriots didn't lose this week because they were on bye.
Yeah, they were on a bye week this week.
Let's see what else happened. The Cowboys got another win against a team who they should have beaten, and of course the Dak Prescott hype is now through the roof because wow, the Cowboys beat the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys. I don't know if they're pretenders, but I still don't necessarily think that they're as good as their record shows. I mean, sure, when they win, they're just beating up on teams, but they've lost some games to good teams, and they've also lost some games that they just shouldn't have lost. I do want to talk about the Jets, though, Charlie. Zach Wilson is not only benched; he's now the third string.
He's the third string behind Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian.
That's very sad.
I really quick want to get to the Cowboys, just real quick. Here's the game. Their wins this season are against the Giants, the Jets, the Patriots, the Chargers, the Rams, and the Giants again, and the Panthers. Their losses are against the Eagles, the Cardinals, and a blowout against the 49ers.
Yeah.
So, do we have any confidence that they can beat the Eagles on December 10th? No. Are they going to be able to beat Seattle at home on Thursday? Maybe. And then can they beat the Lions again? Maybe. And then they also have the Dolphins, which is going to be tough. And they have the Bills, who will finally look like maybe they're getting back on. Admittedly, playing the Jets isn't that hard. That game was a blowout, 32-6. Which was was that a scoregami this week?
I don't know. I do want to say though, Charlie, the Cowboys, they will have played a game between when we're taping this and when this episode's released. They play on Thanksgiving against the Commanders, Lions. They also play on Thanksgiving, Seahawks and the 49ers. They play in primetime on Thanksgiving. And they play the Packers on Thanksgiving, the Lions do.
Yes. By the way,
that Seahawks game.
It was not a scoregami.
Okay, then Charlie, that Seahawks game against the Rams, they held the lead for a while. Geno Smith was injured, and in the second half, Drew Lock came on, was just absolutely terrible. Rams came back, took the lead. Geno Smith did get out onto the field to try to attempt the game-winning drive to get into field goal range. He did his job. He got into field goal range, but then Jason Myers, he missed the long field goal. He had already made 2+ 50-yard field goals that game, so it's kind of hard to hold this one against him. But there's some bad play calling, bad time management on both sides, and absolutely terrible officiating.
Yeah, now I will say, I have seen a lot of Seahawks fans panicking because we have a very tough next 4 games. However, we have the 49ers at home. The Niners haven't looked that good recently. I know they blew out Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville is maybe that good. And they beat an okay Buccaneers team. And then after that, Seattle has a really tough game against the Cowboys, but I don't think the Cowboys I don't think are that good either. And then they have the 49ers again. I don't think they can beat the Niners at home. I mean, I think that's a loss. I don't think they're going to beat the Eagles. But then after that, they have the Titans, who are awful. They have the Steelers, who are weird, and I think will win because that game's at home. And then we finish the season against the Cardinals. So I think, objectively, I think we may finish 10-7 or 11-6.
Yeah, I think 11-6 is probably the best you can hope for, and even that seems like a prayer. I don't see them going 5-2. I think 4-3 is kind of what you have to aim for, but 10-7 should probably get you into the postseason.
I think 10-7 puts you in the playoffs. The division win. Puts you in the playoffs. Considering the 49ers have struggled, it might be enough to win the division, depending on what the 49ers do.
I kind of doubt that.
We'll see. One of the weird things that I want to say. Are the Broncos about to make the playoffs?
I don't know if I'll go that far. Their schedule is still, it's not easy, and Minnesota, I mean, sure, the Josh Dobbs hype was going to die at some point, but the Cleveland and Houston the next 2 weeks, that could really, I mean, that I think will kind of make or break their season. Then they have the Chargers twice more. They also have the Patriots and the Raiders. and the Lions, but I could see them winning 9 games, maybe 10,
But the question is,
which I think 10
let's
would put them in the playoffs. I don't think 9 would.
let's look at the AFC. I think the Dolphins are going to run away with that with the East.
Yeah,
I think the Bills will maybe get in the playoffs, maybe.
yeah,
I think the Ravens are in. I think the Browns are in.
yeah.
And I think it's going to be it's going to be close. I think one of either Jacksonville or Houston doesn't make the playoffs.
That might be the case. We'll see. I mean,
let's
that would be absolutely brutal.
But so I think it's just the Texans have a very easy schedule the rest of the way. They have Jacksonville next week. That's I think that will really make or break their season. But then they have Denver, the Jets, the Titans, the Browns, the Titans again, and the Colts.
Yeah, there's some fairly easy games in there. That's for
I think
sure.
really. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the losses that the Texans have this season, they got blown up by the Ravens in the first week of the season, which wasn't really a surprise. They lost to the Colts in week 2 in a close one. Close. I say 11. They dropped 2 really not great games against the Falcons and Panthers, but they do have clutch wins over the Saints, Buccaneers, and Cardinals and Bengals, and they blew out the Steelers.
Yeah. And
All right,
finally, in this NFL
we need to
segment,
move on.
we got to talk about that Super Bowl rematch.
The Chiefs receivers can't catch at
No,
all.
they can't. Mahomes was throwing it perfectly.
Mahomes was fine. Also, the Chiefs lost because Taylor Swift wasn't there. You cannot convince me otherwise.
Sure. Obviously, but yeah, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the game honestly proved to me that he's still the best quarterback in the league. He was putting it right on his receivers' hands. The deep ball to the end zone, the 4th down and long play, both perfect throws on that final drive that the receivers just could not hold on to. You got to wonder why.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we got to move on because we spent a lot of time on the NFL. Let's move on to college football.
Yeah, let's talk about just some of these games here.
Looking at the playoffs, oh my God, this is going to be close.
There's so many teams. Georgia, big win over Tennessee, but at the same time, if they lose to Alabama in the conference championship, they might be done just because of how many teams are involved. Like if you're 12-1 without a conference championship, you might not be in. This Ohio State-Michigan game that's coming up. This is basically going to decide a playoff spot, assuming the winner doesn't choke in the conference championship game. And then Florida State, they've had a tough schedule, but they've lost their quarterback. Washington, if they win out, they'll be in the playoffs at the same time. If Oregon wins out, which would include beating Washington in the conference championship, then they'll probably go to the playoffs. But if Oregon loses to Oregon State, they might not even go to the Pac-12 championship.
Yeah, if Oregon loses to Oregon State this weekend, which they very well could.
Yeah.
That would put Arizona in and basically gives Washington a very easy chance to make the playoffs if they can get past. But the other question is, can Louisville somehow launch themselves into the playoffs?
I don't think that their schedule is hard enough. I think that in the ACC right now, you basically have to win out. And there's a chance if they can beat Florida State in the conference championship after beating Kentucky this week. And Charlie, real quick, Arizona, they will have to beat Arizona State to even have a chance, but I don't see them losing to Arizona State. And I mean, Arizona is also a very different team from the last time Washington played them, and that game was close. So, and it would be tough. I think that Washington could win that game. Right? We've been saying, oh, Washington's going to lose this game for a while. They just haven't. They're winning games. Oregon's really the only opponent that I think could even give them trouble, and that's because Oregon over the last month or so has just been leaps and bounds better than Washington. But Charlie, I'd also argue Texas, if they win out against Iowa State, and then whoever they end up playing in the conference championship game, not against Iowa State, against TCU, they just played Iowa State, then they'll have a chance. And Alabama, if they win out against Auburn and then against Georgia in the SEC championship, they have a chance. So there's so many teams that could do it here. It's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, look at this. You have Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. I really think throw Louisville in there too.
Yep.
So you have 9 teams going. This is why we need a 12-team playoff.
Exactly.
But here's one of the questions that I have for you.
Yeah.
if Georgia loses to Alabama,
Yeah.
Washington loses to Arizona because Oregon loses to Oregon State, and
Yeah.
Texas loses, who do you put in the playoffs? Do you put Louisville in there? Do you put maybe
Florida
like
State. Well, that assumes Florida State wins out, so they're in. The winner of Ohio State, Michigan is in. Alabama's in, and then maybe Georgia, and then either Georgia or Washington, which would mean it's probably Georgia over Washington because SEC bias.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, and then the other question that I had for you is who's the Heisman favorite at this point?
Bo Nix, clearly. Bo Nix has he's been unreal the last few weeks. He's launched himself into being the favorite
Yes,
very
but
quickly. Do have a few.
if they drop the game to Oregon State and they don't make the Pac-12 championship, how badly does that hurt his odds?
Depends on how Bo Nix does in the game. I mean, at most he's a 2-loss. He's on a 2-loss team, right? So that's like I think that he's still the favorite. Do you want to talk about a couple Pac-12 games because there are a couple Pac-12 rivalries? Cal and Stanford. This game, it's not really a big deal anymore because neither of these teams have been good for a while. But this is one of the longest rivalries in existence. Been played well over 100 times. Cal coming away with the win again. They haven't won. I believe that they're up 3 or maybe even 4 straight now. They haven't won that many in a row. A long time. And then Charlie, UCLA, they're beating USC. USC has just been an absolute disaster the last few weeks. They started 6-0. Since then, they're 1-5, with their only win being just barely squeaking out a win over Cal. And then finally in the Pac-12, Charlie,
How
Washington
about the
State, they
Buffalo?
finally get back on the winning track. And Colorado, it's over. No bowl game for them.
This is just a disaster.
It's bad. And I mean, Charlie, there's another coach out there who inherited a 1-11 team last year. It's the Northwestern coach, and he actually got them to a bowl game. Why is he not getting the same level of hype that Deion Sanders has gotten for what's going to end up being a 4-8 season?
Yeah, I mean that certainly is interesting. Who does Colorado play next week?
Utah.
Okay, well that Utah is another team that's completely fallen apart.
Sure, but they're still a pretty good team, and I can't see Utah losing at home to Colorado, especially Utah almost never loses at home. So move on though, Charlie, away from football entirely. Let's talk some Major League Baseball. I've got a couple free agent signings. Aaron Nola, he's re-signed with the Phillies, and Lance Lynn has gone to the Cardinals. But then, Charlie, some other just more general pieces of news around the league. The A's are officially moving to Las Vegas, and now Atlanta, after 2021 having the All-Star game removed, they'll host it in 2025. What are your thoughts on these pieces of news?
Well, that's it. The era of sports in Oakland is over. The Warriors are gone, the Raiders are gone, and soon so will the A's.
Yeah, it's a very sad story of sports in Oakland, who actually has a really great fan base if owners would actually invest the money into building competitive teams. There's something that they just haven't been willing to do. And then with Atlanta, I feel like that takes away the entire purpose of moving it away from the game away from Atlanta. It means it was just a PR move that you were doing. And I mean, that was it. You just put it back there 4 years later.
Yeah, and also, by the way, just some news just a few minutes ago that I'm seeing. Kyle Gibson will sign with the Cardinals.
That's so that definitely is a notable move. Charlie, let's close by talking about what I hear is just not all a good Formula One race this week.
No, the Vegas Grand Prix started off on a terrible footing within 10 minutes of free practice 1 starting. Carlos Sainz hit a drain cover on the main straight, which took out most of his floor and penalized him. And he losing P2 on the grid, which allowed Verstappen to take the lead going into turn 1, which most likely would not have happened if Sainz hadn't been penalized for something that absolutely was not his fault. And due to that, fans were sent home from pre-practice 1 after 9 minutes, and I don't really know if any compensation changed hands at all there. Free practice 2 was held without fans. This was just a disaster. Verstappen won in a relatively uncompetitive race. We did have quite a few overtakes due to the very long straightaway, but I mean, this season has just been such a disappointment, and I can't wait for next season. Hopefully, we'll get some more competitive action here from McLaren, from Aston Martin, from Ferrari, and from Mercedes as they look to challenge Red Bull's dominance. Red Bull now breaks Mercedes' record in 2016 for the most wins by a team in a season with 20.
Yep. And Charlie, I think Verstappen's comments were accurate when he said that the race was 99% show. And
Absolutely.
the show, it was not a very good show. But that's going to do it for this episode of C&C Talks. And make sure that you subscribe episodes every single week wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to check out that interview that we just did earlier this week with Tyrion Gonzalez of Locked On Mariners, Seattle Overload, and Control the Zone. Make sure to visit our website, cctalks.com, which is everything you need to know about the show. And call us with your questions, 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast, and follow Charlie at CC Talks Charlie. For our producer Morris, production designer Zack, sound designer Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. See you next week.